What's up, everybody? We are Against the Spread podcast, college football edition. Got my boy Bees with me tonight. Unfortunately, Rich could not make it. He is stuck in an airport with what is it, a layover or whatever the fuck they call
Delayed
that?
flight. Yeah, the
Oh,
old delayed
wow.
flight.
Wow.
It's Christmas
Wow.
time, buddy. Everybody's trying to hop on a plane right now.
Yep. I just really messed the algorithm up. I said F word within 2 seconds of starting, but
Well, we're live.
um,
I did that
we
last week.
are live. Um, so a lot of stuff to talk about tonight, guys. Obviously, it's a little light on the football, more on the transfer portal side, also the recruiting side of things. So we're going to kind of dive into these. First, wanted to kind of talk about the Dylan Raiola news from Georgia. Now looks like obviously he flipped to Nebraska. Officially, kind of knew this was going to happen for the past 3 weeks. It's kind of the writing's been on the walls. He's visited there and been in talks with Nebraska and hasn't really reached out to Georgia recently. So we kind of knew that was going to happen. Other than that, I think we also saw who was it? Carson Beck said he was going to stay at Georgia about 5 minutes before Dylan Raiola posted that he was
Hey,
committing or flipping to Nebraska. So that was pretty bad
perfect.
PR move.
I thought it was pretty perfect, dude. I mean, they're trying to shut
This is
down all
this
the
is why
noise
I
by
think
just
it was
saying,
a this is why I think it was a pretty bad PR move, because if his whole stigma behind him has been, oh, he dodges competition, like he doesn't want competition,
yeah,
because he dodged the Arch Manning thing. He didn't want to go where Arch Manning went, and once Arch Manning picked Texas over Georgia, he then flipped to Georgia. So that was the first thing about him dodging things and or dodging people. And then with Puglisi, he committed, and that looked like it was fine. And then kind of heard some rumblings about him not loving that they took two quarterbacks. And then
oh, you
now, kind of,
so you're saying PR stunt on Dylan Raiola's side.
I
Bad
think it
bad
was
move on
I
his
think it
part.
was bad PR on Dylan Raiola's side.
Yeah,
I
okay.
do
I thought
think
you were
I
saying
do
Georgia's
think that
side.
no. I
Yeah.
think Georgia. I think that was I don't know if that was Carson Beck or Kirby Smart wanting to beat the Raiola news, so it would
Yeah.
take a lot of the negative connotation out of it, or make sure a lot of our commits didn't decommit from us.
Yeah.
Um, that's a big thing, as well as any like wide receivers in the transfer portal wanting to come to us. Is that if that was going to hurt us or not? So go ahead, get that
Yeah.
Carson Beck news out right before Dylan Raiola does it. I don't know what it was, if it was us or if it was him, but if it was him, pretty bad on his part of things
Yeah.
in my opinion. Um, but
What'd you think of the poem?
I thought it was corny. He's a cornball, man. I think it
Yeah,
was
so
super
corny.
corny. Dude, I just know, like, if you would have gone into Georgia writing a poem, like those seniors would have just shit on you for
Yeah,
the remainder of the time they were there. So
yeah.
until people just forgot about it, you probably would have been called, like, I don't know, well, name a poet. I don't know. So like,
Edgar Allan
so
Poe, buddy.
yeah, you've been called
Yeah,
Edgar the whole time you were in
yeah.
school. So pretty
That's about
lame
all
by
of
him,
them.
in my
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah, that's
Um, but let's kind of go into some of this transfer portal news, dude. I mean, there's been some pretty big developments since the last time we talked. Obviously, um, let's see, Dante Moore chose to go to Oregon. That's on the heels of Dylan Gabriel choosing to go to Oregon as well. In that sense, that Dylan Gabriel is going to sit in front of him probably this first
mhm.
year, and he's going to sit there, learn, get better. He's under a good offense. He has a good system that Bo Nix just thrived in. I think Dylan Gabriel's going to thrive in it as well. Then you got
Yeah,
Dante Moore, who probably can come in garbage time next year and get some really, really good reps against some good Big Ten teams.
yeah,
So I think a Big Ten defenses especially. So that's going to be pretty good for him developing. And then you're going to have a
and
guy waiting in the wing like Dante Moore right after Dylan Gabriel leaves. So three
yeah,
quarterbacks in a row for Oregon that are going to be bang, 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 elite guys. And go ahead and expect them to start getting some elite talent in either high
yeah.
school or transfer portal with
It
wide
definitely
receivers.
came off. It definitely came off as a bit of a surprise to me because I was like, oh, but Dylan Gabriel just decided to go there. But I mean, his other option was he was going to go sit behind JJ McCarthy at Michigan. So like, I guess he kind of had
Right.
that in his
Yeah.
mind. He was okay with finding a great system to sit behind a year and really learn it. And get
and
something out of it,
especially
come out on
more of
fire.
a solid solid coaching status.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
your coach is going to be there. You don't know what the future holds for Jim Harbaugh.
That's for sure.
So that's another thing. Dan Lanning is going to be at Oregon for a couple more years, and I don't. He might in the future go and be a NFL coach, or he might try to come back down and be like an Alabama coach or a Georgia coach
Mhm.
later down the road. But right now he's at Oregon, and I think he's going to stay put for a little while. But
Yeah,
that's an elite coach. Like
I agree.
that guy is insane.
Hey, speaking
Um,
of before you continue, speaking of coaches who are gonna be in a place for a long time, I saw the old Lane Kiffin news, just signed a contract through
huge.
2028.
Yeah,
Clearly, what
huge.
he's doing in the transfer portal right now is paying off for his wallet. So we're
Well, I
gonna see
think
Lane
the
Kiffin in Ole Miss till 2028, I guess.
huge thing for Lane Kiffin was to get some good stability.
Yeah,
Um, Secondly, I think he has such a strong take in the transfer portal for these kids. Like
yeah,
his main argument is something like, "Hey, guess what? I didn't work out at Alabama, didn't work out at USC, and got sent to the gutter of the football realms in college. And now I came to Ole Miss, and this is my second home, my redemption, the place that
yep,
I am blossoming. Why don't you come do the same thing here? Spend your last year or spend your last 2 years here and blossom here, even though you're not going to like the nightlife. There's nothing to do in Oxford. There's not
yeah,
shit to do in Oxford, Mississippi. Nothing.
yeah.
But there's
Hey,
pretty women and
I was
there is
gonna
good
say there's some
football.
fine women.
Exactly. Pretty women and the
That's one thing
NIL
they
is
can't get enough.
obviously popping.
Yeah, no, I
So
mean they're
those are two
killing it.
things for him that are pretty big. Um, USC recently losing their um, defensive backs coach to Georgia. A lot of transfers are following that. Damani Jackson, former 5-star, Corey Foreman, former 5-star. Offensive side of the ball, you have the quarterback. He's leaving as well. A lot of these are on the heels. Don't know if they're directly related, but you can kind of guess that the Damani Jackson one is pretty much like
Yeah,
directly correlating to his coach leaving. So those are going to be some big guys in the transfer portal that everyone's going to be looking at. Now, the quarterback, don't know how well he did at USC. Obviously, if you're a 5-star, former 5-star, you're leaving USC. Like I told you before the podcast, I don't think that
yeah,
bodes well for you because it kind of screams, "Hey, I'm not that great of a quarterback." If
yeah,
my coach just went from Caleb Williams, now he's going to Will Howard.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
that kind of
that's
makes it.
pretty wild to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Just because just seeing the quarterbacks. I mean, I have no doubt in Lincoln Riley's ability to produce quarterbacks. I mean, looking at his track record with quarterbacks, but Will Howard just does not fit that mold to me of the guys
Yeah,
he's
but
had. I mean, he still can get
if
out. I
you
mean,
look at it
he can
though,
run.
I think he
Oh,
does. He is a little bit more athletic than people think. And if
yeah,
Lincoln Riley's like approach is going to be letting his guys, because I really do think that Will Howard can be like a Baker Mayfield for you with a little less
yeah,
running. Okay, I
true.
really do. His size, think about it. He is 6'4", 210. I don't think Lincoln Riley's ever had a quarterback that's 6'4", 210.
Yeah,
That's like a strict, but he also can run a little bit as
yeah,
well.
he can.
So
Yep.
it's going to be kind of that thing where like, does this new body type work out for Lincoln Riley? Is it kind of the offense he wants to start moving towards instead of
Hmm.
moving the pocket with your quarterback? Make sure you get those offensive linemen up front better, so then your
Yeah,
quarterback can sit in a pocket. Um, so those are kind of things you kind of worry about when it comes to USC, but hopefully some guys start coming in instead of everyone leaving. That'll
well,
be a
yeah. I
good
mean, and at the
start
end of
for
the
them.
day, they're always under Lincoln Riley. You're always going to have a good offense, but it's when
Yeah,
are they going to produce a good defense? That's all that matters at this point.
of
That's what
course.
we're all
And
waiting to see is can Lincoln Riley actually put together a good defense? We'll find out. I mean, he's made
fired
the
their
right
last
steps.
defensive
So,
coordinator, hired another guy that I think is good. So we're going to
yeah,
see if he kind of can switch this thing around. But if you don't recruit the defensive positions well, you
mhm.
know, you're not going to be doing well on defense. And a lot of these guys that you recruited are leaving.
Yeah,
So
and what they're
that
going
doesn't
Big
help.
Ten, right? They're going Big Ten, so
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean schedules. I mean schedules are only getting harder from here on out, dude. So I mean,
Yep.
a USC team like this year, imagine if they had the same schedule next year. Shit, they might have maybe not even made a bowl game. So we'll see. I don't know. It's gonna get dicey out there, man. These schedules are looking awesome. I mean, sucks for better teams, but it's gonna
Right.
be it's
Right.
gonna be it's gonna be awesome.
No, I agree. Rich, I don't see any teams talking to Malachi Nelson, the USC guy, right now. Um, but if you see him, just kind of type him in the chat. I don't see anything of like I haven't heard anything about any guys talking to Malachi Nelson, that quarterback transferring from USC so far. Um, Interesting enough, we do have some news in the like Syracuse department. I don't know if we really talked about it, but the Kyle McCord guy, like Kyle McCord is officially going to Syracuse. Did we talk about that last week, Brennan?
No, we were talking about him going to Nebraska, and then we were like, "What does this mean for Kyle McCord?" Because that was
Right.
right when the Dylan Raiola news first broke, so we were kind of like,
Right.
"What does
So
this mean?"
so
So,
he's officially going to Syracuse now.
yep,
Fran Brown's done an amazing job in the transfer portal. Also, high school recruiting as well. Like, dude, he has flipped the number one player in New Jersey, I think it was, or New York or Philadelphia, something like that. One of the Northeast teams flipped like the number one player up there to Syracuse. They're getting some 4-star receivers, 2 of them from Georgia, getting a good tight end,
hmm
getting some help on the line. I think that Fran Brown's really trying to change this thing around quick. And it's a thing that like you don't talk about a lot, but getting a head coach who is a motivator and a good recruiter can completely change your program, especially now in the NIL era, because I do think
hmm
that Syracuse has money. And it's obviously showing that they're wanting to make some changes up there and actually compete. Dude, they can compete in the ACC.
I was
I
about to
don't
say
know.
in a
I
weak
don't know
conference right
if
there.
I don't know if
Yeah,
you've seen their schedule, but it's
yeah,
cake. It's a fucking cakewalk, Beach. It
yeah.
is so easy. It is not
I
hard.
mean,
So I think that's going to be something that they're going to be able to
yeah,
take advantage of is
absolutely.
the weak schedule that they have. Obviously, I think they get over 6 wins next year.
Yeah, for
If
sure.
dude, the thing about Kyle McCord is he's not going to make mistakes, and he's
Yeah.
going to put you in. He's going to put you in a good position to win.
hmm
Same thing he did at Ohio State. They asked him, "Hey, don't really lose us this game, but you don't have to go out and win us this game."
Yeah.
So it looks like that's kind of what the what the consensus is on Kyle McCord is he's not going to lose you any games right
Yeah.
now. Uh, Georgia
Yeah.
landing that Landon Humphreys kid from Vanderbilt, 6'4", 210, runs a sub 10 300-meter. Guy's a blazer. He is a big, big, big guy too. So like on film, he doesn't look big because he's so fast. Like you
Yeah.
don't see guys 6'4", white and 210 pounds running that fast. So that's an elite guy that just got to Georgia and hoping that he can move around a lot, X, Y,
Yeah.
or Z position for Georgia. So
Hey,
that'll be pretty interesting.
update on for Rich on Malachi Nelson.
Hmm.
On three reported earlier, it says so. You're probably right, Zach. I mean, between these schools, it says he's talked to South Carolina, Houston, Tulane, Cal, and TCU. So
So those are
nowhere
the schools right now
crazy.
that
Yeah.
have no quarterback at the current moment
Yeah.
because their
South
quarterback has
Carolina. I
left.
mean,
And I think
I
if you
could
can
see
go
him going
play
to
at
South
South
Carolina.
Carolina, if you can go play at
Yeah.
South Carolina and win that position and get some SEC time under your
Mhm.
belt, it only can make you better. I do
Yeah.
think, however, like Houston or a TCU wouldn't be awful because they are in the Big 12 and Big 12 you're
That's
going to be
true.
able to play some guys too. So that's not awful. So it's not like he's not getting shit from like the Mountain West. Like,
Mhm.
he's still getting
Yeah.
kind of good teams looking at him, but it's
Shoot.
not USC, it's
Hey,
not Georgia, it's not, Michigan.
yeah,
So
he might go for Tulane, man. Is it true that I don't know if they've officially made this a thing yet, but is next year in the 12-team playoff, is it
mhm.
officially going to be like the group of five champion is
Well, it's
making
the
it
best. It's
automatically?
going to be the best group of five team. So
Yeah.
obviously, there's multiple conferences in group of five, but the best group of five
Yeah.
team is going to be getting that 12th spot.
Yeah.
Um,
That's yeah. That's
so
gonna cause I mean, talk about this year causing problems, but that's gonna cause problems next year when you have, for say, a Tennessee 3-loss team or an Ole Miss 3-loss team that's lost to Alabama, Georgia, and
I
I
also
know
think,
those teams aren't on
Brennan,
our schedule, but
this is going to be
you know,
crazy to you, but I also saw this in the bylaws of the playoff that it is a 3-team maximum, I think, or a 3-conference maximum.
3 conference
So
loss.
no, 3
Or, oh,
conference
oh,
maximum. So
what?
Texas, Georgia, Alabama, right? Like that could be the 3, and then
Hmm.
Big 10, you have Michigan, Ohio State,
Penn State.
fucking Penn State or Michigan
Oh
State
shit, they got
or
Oregon,
Oregon.
Washington.
Yeah,
I
Oregon,
mean,
yeah. So like,
yeah,
you got those teams now, but now it's a 3-team maximum. Now that might change
yeah,
before it starts up next year, because I think you need it to change. If you're going to have these big conferences combine and get
yeah,
SEC with 16 teams now, Big 10 with 16, almost 18 teams now, Big 12, 3 teams max is stupid as shit,
yeah. That's
especially if
dumb.
you're really going to look at how these schedules are and how hard these schedules are going to be moving forward with what conferences they're in. You have to reward these guys that are playing in harder conferences like you wanted, because everybody
Hmm.
wanted, hey, your schedule's not strong enough. Your schedule's not
Yep,
strong enough. Strength of schedule, strength of schedule. Now, strength of schedule is really going to fucking matter, and they need to make sure that shit is about 50% of what you look at, maybe even more,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
because
because Georgia's
if you
schedule next year is horrible. Florida schedules next year is awful. I mean, the only reason Florida's is worse than Georgia's is because they play each other, and Florida's definitely the worst team. So
I
it's
think the
but
hardest
like I
thing
mean,
about this
I'm
is like
sure.
if Georgia can win or only lose 2 games next year, that's a W.
Oh,
That's a W.
y'all are a top 8 team still, like
Like that's a
easily.
W,
Yeah, yeah,
because we have to go to Alabama, to Texas,
yeah,
to Ole Miss, who we haven't really like dived in that shit much,
yeah.
but dude, they're like beefing up.
They're
Like
looking crazy.
defense beefing up, offense beefing up. Juice Wells, Jackson Dart, Judkins,
Trey
Trey
Harris.
Harris.
I mean,
These are
all
just the 4
studs.
guys that you need to look at. Now go to the defense side of the ball. They got the guy from Florida. They got
Yep.
2 defensive guys from Tennessee. Dude,
Yep.
this and
And
also
then
they're
Walter
also in on Walter
Nolan.
Nolan. Yeah,
Yeah, I
exactly.
mean,
They're
sheesh,
also in on Walter Nolan's between them and
that
Georgia
team's
right
gonna be
now.
scary. That
That's a
team's gonna be scary.
scary team. So
Yeah,
and you have to go to all of those places if you're Georgia.
yeah,
So
it's crazy.
I think if they lose all 3, I don't think they get in the playoff.
I
Georgia,
mean,
dude, if you lose all 3 of
I
your hardest
guess,
games, you're
yeah,
not getting in. Like
yeah, that's
if
true.
you lose
That's
your
true.
3 toughest games, there's no way they're gonna be like, hey, it was your 3 toughest though. You lost them all. Like you got to
Yeah,
win
but
at
I
least
don't,
fucking one.
I don't see y'all losing
Um,
it. Still don't losing to Ole Miss. I mean, I could maybe see Texas and Alabama, but I think y'all go 2-1 through those games. I don't
I
know
do
what
too.
order and who y'all beat. Yeah,
I think it's going to be tough. I don't know. I think 2-1 is very realistic. I think we can drop one.
yeah, yeah,
I think we're lucky that we're playing Tennessee, or not Tennessee. I think we're lucky that we're playing Texas kind of early.
yeah,
I think we have a shot to like get better though before. So there's like 4 games and then Texas, or 3 games and then Texas.
yeah,
Huge for Georgia if they can go out and get some shit kind of locked in.
yeah.
They can't do what they did this year and take 6 games to get warmed up for their hard games.
Well, and
They
I'll
have to
say
like
for that, I mean, just projecting on the next year, like for that game, y'all's DBs are strong, and they're what Texas is going to be losing Xavier Worthy and AD Mitchell Price. So, I mean, they're gonna replace him with some studs, but I don't know why we're talking about this. This is a next year thing, but yeah,
yeah. We're kind of diving
we're
too
going
far
on a
in,
tangent. We're going on a tangent right
but
now.
yeah. So like we talked about, Walter Nolan, obviously, um, it looks like it's between Ole Miss and Georgia right now. Georgia has kind of pushed in late. I think he was kind of eyeing some other teams, and then Georgia was like, "Hey, remember us
Mhm.
from high school? We're still here, big dog. Remember how good we treated you in your recruitment? Remember how we didn't talk shit to you after you left and went to Texas A&M?" So they're in on that now. You talked about LT Overton
Yep.
coming to Alabama. Huge for Alabama to get some experience there. As he is only a sophomore, though, you have to look
Yeah.
at it in the sense of like, dude, this guy is going to be very good
Yeah.
in the future.
Yeah.
And I
Which
think he's very
are
good right now, but it's just
yeah,
go
we're
ahead.
gonna lose some guys. We're gonna lose a lot of experience on that D line. We have a lot of young studs coming up, but just to have a guy coming from a big major program like that, knowing how to work, help lead some young guys that haven't been around long, I think it'll be big for us.
Yeah, of course. I also wanted to kind of look at Washington, what they've kind of done, getting some of these guys out of the portal. Obviously, they're going for offensive line, defensive line. They're trying to beef up um, their interior side of the ball. Obviously, you kind of need to do that when you're going to the Big Ten. You need to
Hmm.
increase your middle of the pack. Make sure these guys are humming, moving, experienced. And I think they're doing that with some of these guys they're getting. Also, getting Will Rogers. We've talked about that. That's huge for them.
Yep.
Getting that kind of player to your team with that much experience and that much talent is just going to be insane. Also, um, Jesus Christ, what's going on? Um, Also, we talked about that earlier. Louisville, just
Yeah,
kind
Louisville.
of coming out of nowhere and getting a couple guys that you were like, wait, Louisville's doing what? Like,
Yeah.
what are they doing here? Um, so pretty impressive. Obviously, they've done the same thing that you would expect them to do. Go get some interior guys, interior offensive line, offensive tackles, beefing up their skilled positions, tight end, wide receiver from Alabama, Ja'Cory Brooks. That's going to be huge. Getting a really good running back from Miami, Don Chaney. That's pretty big, dude. And then
Yeah.
obviously,
And
dude, the defensive linemen they've gotten, like, just look at this experience these guys have. That's a junior. That's a junior. This cornerback's a senior. This guy's a
yeah.
sophomore. He's an edge guy. I mean, dude, they're like beefing up every position from quarterback to cornerback to wide receiver to defensive line to linebacker,
Yeah.
tight end. They're beefing up everything.
Yeah, I mean, and
So
it's like you said, experience too. Ja'Cory Brooks coming in from Alabama. I mean, he'll be, I believe, a senior, junior or senior, definitely. And I mean, he was Alabama leaned on him 2 years ago for a lot of stuff when we had a young wide receiver core. And I mean, he was battling some injuries this year for Alabama, and
mhm.
obviously, Alabama's going to roll and replace as we can, and we will always. So, Ja'Cory Brooks for them is going to be huge on the offensive side of the ball. Not sure who their quarterback's going to be. I haven't looked too much into that because Jack Plummer's going to the NFL,
What
right?
did they?
I thought Jack
I
Plummer
know,
was.
no. I think
You don't
Jack
think
Plummer's
so?
gonna. No, I think he was a junior. I mean, but it doesn't matter. They recruited three more in the transfer portal, so they're trying
Yeah.
to just see who the fuck's the best guy and come win the spot. And then if you don't win, transfer out in the spring.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, that's kind of what it's looking like for them right now. So, I think you're. Let's talk about some of the winners in the transfer portal right now. What's your
Yeah.
top three if you could count winners right now? I'm saying Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss, Oregon, and I guess, do you go Syracuse? Like, do you go Syracuse with what they've
Uh,
done?
I I would say Ole Miss, Kentucky. I think Kentucky getting Brock Vandergriff is big time. I mean, I like Kentucky, and I feel like Missouri's actually done pretty good in the transfer portal, and I mean, just in recruiting overall recently. I think Missouri's kind of building some good stuff. I think they're at like number 9 right now
Yeah,
for
no, I mean,
transfer portal. They've
doing well. I think
yeah,
just for me, like with the Syracuse thing, the reason why I'm saying that is because, like, obviously you have Fran Brown coming there, and
yeah,
like he's going in the transfer portal, getting a 4-star edge guy from Texas A&M. That's huge. Getting a
yeah,
4-star guy from West, or a 3-star guy from West Virginia, linebacker. 3-star guy from Buffalo, linebacker, almost a 4-star. You're going and getting two highly rated 4-stars from Georgia wide
yeah,
receivers, and then you're going to get Kyle McCord, former number one player or number one
yeah,
quarterback in the nation, now 4-star. But dude, that's just, to me, that's just, it's just the school. Like Syracuse getting those
yeah.
kind of guys is just nuts. Like you don't see that happen often. So
But in terms of teams that you think could make a like, because Syracuse, that's a look ahead kind of thing. That's like, oh, next year it's definitely going to make an impact and they're going to do better. But new
right.
head coach, they're going to start building a culture there.
Are you
But
saying
like
like
in
who do
terms
I
of
think is
next
like
year, who do you
right?
think is going to compete with like what the transfers are coming in like next
No,
year?
I do like what you were saying with the Kentucky thing, but I would
Yeah,
even dive so far into like I kind of want to see like what turns out for some of these other schools. Like I kind of want to see what Alabama can do in the transfer portal as well
yeah,
as Georgia.
yeah,
Because if Georgia can get like another wide receiver, another linebacker, that'd be kind of or sorry, not no linebacker, defensive lineman maybe, like that Walter Nolan, like getting Walter
Mhm.
Nolan and then that huge receiver 6'5",
Yeah.
what was he, 225, that guy from Miami. If they can
Yeah.
get that kid, and then I think that's a huge win for them. But I do think that, like, if you're looking at right now, who could win tomorrow with the team they have, and what they're bringing in on this transfer portal, I definitely think Kentucky is a team, and
Yeah.
Missouri. Those two teams are they're looking very good in the transfer portal. Also, you can't
Uh,
count out Washington with what they've done too. So
yeah, and two big names that had just entered in that we were talking about right before the show. You know, USC edge Corey Foreman, former #1 player in the 2021 class, transferring out of USC. So that's a big name to look after coming up. And then who was it? Texas A&M, Elijah Mitchell, I believe,
yeah,
is popping in there. So I mean, this is all
Evan
happened literally.
Stewart too. Did you
Or
say Evan
sorry,
Stewart?
sorry, Elijah Mitchell, my dumbass, Evan Stewart. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, that guy, he's a stud. So that literally just happened right before the show. Excited,
Yeah, I mean,
excited
dude,
to
look
see
at
where those guys are
I
going.
I love what so Kentucky must feel pretty comfortable with what they have on the defense side of the ball, as well as like incoming recruits as well,
Yeah,
as what they already have. Because I mean, they're bringing in a 4-star dude. This guy elevated his rating from a 3-star to a 4-star at I think that's Eastern Michigan. That's pretty impressive.
yeah,
And then you have a 4-star from Ohio State, 4-star from Texas A&M wide receiver, and then former 5-star Brock Vandergriff. So it's obviously an emphasis on, hey, we want the offense side of the ball to move this year, and I think that's what they're trying to do. I think that's so good for Kentucky to kind of be one of those teams that are like, hey, we need to go right now and go spend our money on this because it's huge, and this means a lot. So
well, yeah, and I
that's
mean that's
that's
my.
awesome.
I mean, I agree. You know, it is tough for the 12-team playoff. Like just speaking on that, kind of going back to Kentucky, maybe being one of those teams. You know, they
Mm,
lose three tough SEC games. But at the same time, it's annoying because you're like, why in the world is a 9-3 team who couldn't beat any good teams during the season in a playoff right now? You know, so
yeah,
it's kind of like a like half glass half full, whatever you look at it. It's like, okay, yeah, you know, they lost three tough games, they deserve to be in the playoff. But then it's like,
but it's like,
well, they
who'd you
lost
win?
they
Who'd you
they
beat?
lost their three hardest games. Now they're about to
Yeah,
play top two or top, you know, top whatever team in the country. They're not going to win that game either. So
right.
it's going to be a weird dynamic, which I mean, I will say, you know, sometimes teams can win on any given day, but it's definitely going to be a weird dynamic looking ahead. But it's going to be fun. Get to see teams that don't ever get to play each other. So I think
Yeah,
we'll
man,
enjoy
I'm
it.
excited. I'm excited. I think it's going to be really fun. This new playoff and the era that we're going to be in for the next couple of years. And just remember, it's only a 2-year deal.
Yeah.
So if it's something, if this 12 team isn't looking good after the 2 years, I think you can see some major changes happening. Hey, like, oh, there's more SEC teams that are better than we think. Same thing with Big Ten. Maybe we should expand this a little bit to
Yeah.
where more of those teams can get in. Or hey, maybe we should change this altogether and go back to um, like geography and say, hey, these need to be. I don't know if you. I mean, obviously you heard what Chip Kelly said the other day with
Yeah.
he was talking about the geography and having a 64 team conference
Yeah.
and making it, hey, you're going to play the
Revenue
South
share.
this year. You're going to
Yep.
play the West next year. You're going to play the Midwest this year. You're going to play the
Yeah.
Northeast. Like that's a
Absolutely.
kind of cool concept that I think that would be really cool for us to kind of look at a little bit more. You know, what's funny
Yeah.
is the commissioner of the NCAA, or I don't know if you call him the commissioner, but the guy in charge of the NCAA basically said the exact same thing that Chip Kelly said, and everyone was like, "You fucking idiot! Like, what the fuck are you talking about?" Like a couple months ago, and then
Yeah.
Chip Kelly says it, and they're like, "Oh my god, Chip!
Oh, it
I
makes
think you
sense.
might have known." So
Yeah.
it just shows you how much people fucking hate the NCAA
Yeah.
when he literally said the exact same thing almost to what Chip Kelly said. And everyone was like, "You're a
Yeah.
fucking idiot." So I think that's pretty
Yeah, man.
cool to
The
kind of
more
see that dynamic.
the more I think about it, like with this year, the craziness that happened, and seeing people say like, "Man, if we could just do a 16 playoff for this year," like I feel like 6 teams might be the perfect number. Like if you
Yeah, I
look at
think
like
that
year in, year
we
out,
might get more to I think because that's what I'm
yeah,
saying. After 2 years, like, hey, maybe 6 teams makes more sense. Maybe these like maybe you haven't seen an 8 to 12 team
Yeah.
come to the semifinals yet. They've just gotten their ass beat in the
Yeah.
quarterfinals. Like maybe you haven't
Yeah.
seen them go, or maybe you have seen one team go and then they go to the semifinals and they get their face stomped in by the number
Yeah.
4 team. Like maybe it's going to get to the point where they're like, this doesn't even make sense for us to have it this
Mhm.
big. Let's cut it down to 6, and
Yeah.
then you really will get to see, hey, Georgia would
Yeah.
be in it this year. So
Yeah.
would Oregon and all these
It's
teams that
yeah,
you're saying. Like
exactly.
these are
Well,
pretty big things. So
yeah. And especially just when it comes to the schedules that are bestowed upon us that are coming soon. It's like, man, it'll keep like because I'll go back to the situation with Ohio State and Michigan. It's like, and maybe Georgia and Alabama too. It's like we're at the point where we could see these teams play 3 times a year. But
yep.
like Ohio State and Michigan are. I think I saw their schedule. I think they still have it lined up as the last game of the season, or one of the last games of the season. It's like this team, those 2 teams could play undefeated that day. The very next week, turn around playing the Big Ten championship again,
Yep.
and then a month later they're playing in the college football playoff and could run into each other again. So it's like it kind of diminishes the meaning of some of these games. I can see.
But
So like,
you don't want it to diminish anything, and I don't think diminish the meaning of these games is a good phrase for it, because
yeah,
dude, still like playing these big games is going to be huge,
yeah,
but like I think the SEC championship and like your Big Ten championship could get tainted a little bit if you have a 12-team
yeah,
playoff. And I'm like, hey, dude, my quarterback is not really healthy right now. We're 12-0 though,
yeah.
so we're gonna sit him, become 12-1, and then we're gonna drop to what, 5th,
Yeah, if we
maybe?
lose this game, who gives a shit? Like,
Who
we'll
gives a
be all
fuck?
right. We're still in the 12-team
The
playoff.
only thing
Yeah,
is
I never thought about that.
you're gonna be fighting for a bye though. So I don't see any teams actually doing that. But I'm just saying, like, if you are like a 6, like the 5th or 6th ranked team, and you know you're not going to fall to below 12 if you lose this championship
Yeah,
game, why don't you
yeah,
sit some of your guys that you think that you're going to need for the
mhm,
next game? Why don't you
yeah,
make a guy get surgery right now if he's going to be healed in 4 weeks and be able to play in that national championship, or
yeah,
the next game, the bowl game or whatever? So that's going to be kind of exciting to see. I think we're going to look at
yeah. It's
some of
definitely
this.
gonna be played more pro style thoughts of like, oh, we got room to give, or like even mid season
Yeah,
game.
no,
You gotta got
of
like
course.
all these,
It's going to be kind of
yeah, all these
NFL
mid
look.
season games. Yeah, these mid season games, like, oh, our quarterback's not 100%. It's like, well, screw it. Like if we lose this one game, we'll be all right. Like we're still in the
Like,
12-team
let's say
playoff.
this, hey, we have a cakewalk game, we have a bye next week, and then we have another cakewalk game after our bye. Or we have a kind of hard game, but I think our backup could handle it. You sit your
Hmm.
quarterback mid-year. Also, everyone has 2 buys in the SEC this year coming up.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So
I saw that
that's
too.
crazy. So because I think everyone's playing on week 0, so that's why they could do
Yeah.
that. But you have that, and then you have, let's say he sits for 3 weeks mid-season, or any of your players, your best player sits
Hmm.
for 3 weeks during the season, but it doesn't hurt you at all because you didn't lose any of those games, but you're saving him for that Alabama game right after
Yeah,
that Missouri game or something, or that Kentucky
exactly.
game, and you're saving him for
Yeah.
Alabama. That's going to happen. Things like this are going to start happening in college football because of how these conferences are, what their
Yeah.
schedules are looking like, and how it's a 12-team playoff. And if you're going to start getting um, less of these competitive games mid-season, you might see the college football playoff committee go, "Hey, why don't we just bring it back down, guys, to 6 or
Yeah.
8, and just
Yeah.
kind of sit around there?" Because I
Because
think,
yeah, I mean, if you think about it, 6 teams, like every year, you kind of have, other than this year, I feel like you kind of have your clear cut top three, and then you're kind of like, man, 4, 5, and 6 are all just right there. And even really, it's 4, 5, and then the 6 is still like, dude, like great team. They just lost a game at the wrong moment. Usually a team
right.
that like an Ohio State who loses at the very end of the season, this and that. Like, but I mean, 6 teams is, I think, would be pretty damn perfect year in, year out. If you go back and look at it, I mean, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but I mean, there's a lot of times that those 5 and 6 seeds, you're like, man, tough loss at the wrong time. You're screwed.
And then your number
Obviously,
1 and 2 team get a bye,
mm,
and
yeah,
that's so much more competitive because you're like, holy
yeah,
shit, I really don't want to lose a game, because if I
mhm,
lose, like, I'm not going to be able to get that first bye, and I want that bye bad because that means I don't have to go and play any of my players that are hurt right now, and I can
yeah.
wait another week and then beat their ass the next week after they're coming off a semifinal game.
Oh yeah,
So
1000%.
that's going to be a tough, or a quarterfinal game, but that's going to be a really cool thing to see, I think. But yeah, so a lot of things happening right now. Obviously, we have transfer portal still humming, doing its thing. We have a lot of look ahead right now. I think this is just a lot of look ahead. We're looking ahead on some of these bowl games that are going to be happening and looking at spring for next year, what these teams are going to look like. So it's really exciting right now in college football to kind of look towards some of these things. You have any games like this week you kind of want to just bring up real quick before the end of the podcast? I know there's nothing really crazy this week going on, but next week will be where we start getting to those juicy bowl games.
Yeah, a line that shocked me looking at James Madison is only a 1.5 point favorite over Air Force. I don't know if that's because they got guys sitting out or what, but like I'd imagine that James Madison, who won 11-1, could handle Air Force pretty easily. So I might be hammering that
Well,
one. But then
lost
going
their
back,
coach.
yeah,
Lost their coach. I think they lost a couple guys to the portal.
yeah,
And you got to think these mid-major teams like JMU, Georgia Southern, Air Force, maybe not Air Force, but maybe not the academy schools, but some of these other guys are going to be transferring out. So you look at that and you go, that's why bowl season is so hard. If these guys are not in a big bowl game, it's hard
hmm
because you're like, okay, well, who the fuck's sitting out for Eastern Michigan
yeah,
this week, or who's sitting out for
yeah,
Miami of Ohio? Like, what am I supposed to do?
yeah,
So that's
exactly.
pretty tough. But I do
No,
agree with you.
one thing I
Go
want
ahead.
us to touch on. One thing I want us to touch on next week. I know we're kind of figuring probably closing up shop soon, but
Yeah.
just and I've heard a lot of people talk about it across the college football landscape is just the schedule and the
Hmm.
timeline of this transfer portal crap and like how like the deadline, the opening of it and the deadline or whatever it may be, like being while kids are still playing. Like for Malik Murphy, for instance, it's like
Sucks.
Buddy
Sucks.
did not want to have to go into the transfer portal
Yeah.
while his team's still playing in the playoff, but like that's what he had to do just because of the
Some of
timeline and the
these some
way
of these
things are
Alabama
scheduled.
kids that are
Yeah,
leaving,
exactly.
like
Yeah,
that
it's like
sucks for them to have to like you have
yeah,
to say, hey, if you want to come to our school, you have to go
yeah.
in the transfer portal now because we're gonna fill that spot up with a high school kid
Mhm.
or another college kid because there's thousands of kids in this portal that we can fill
Yeah,
your spot with. So you have to
yeah,
come now. And it's like, fuck, dude, I could get a ring here, but I can't because I have to go with you
or
now. So
I mean, worse off, like, for instance, Ja'Cory Brooks, the wide receiver from Alabama transferring to
he would
Louisville, it's like,
play. He would
dude,
play
I'm like, yeah,
probably.
if somebody goes down and
Yeah.
gets hurt, and it's like, "Oh, Ja'Cory, oh, wait, he's gone." Like, we
Same
can't
thing
use
with
him anymore.
same thing with Malik Murphy though. Quinn
Yeah,
Ewers goes down. They're putting in Malik Murphy. They're not putting in
yeah,
Arch Manning. He's
yeah,
not
heck
he's
no.
not ready yet. So
Yeah, but
that
now
also
that's
sucks for them because now, dude,
like,
now it's like,
what
okay, hey,
if?
we're in
What if?
semifinals.
Yeah,
If you go down, Quinn, Arch, you got to be ready to stand up. Arch has been like, bro, I've been third fiddle all year. What do you mean I got to step up? Like I'm not
yeah,
what like, and you're not playing Kansas, big dog. You're playing
yeah,
Alabama
Washington.
and Washington
Yeah,
probably or Michigan. So you got a big shoes to fill if Quinn goes
yeah,
down. And I
mhm.
don't think anybody would be like, "Oh my God, Arch didn't do good in the playoff. He sucks." It's like, dude, that kid's young. He's not going to
Yeah,
be. He's not ready
exactly.
right
You wouldn't
now.
be expected much.
This guy's a 5-star, I think, coming out of high school based on like ceiling, how high his ceiling
Name.
is, and his name.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's a couple things. But dude, so yeah, Brennan, next week we'll talk about a little bit of the scheduling of the transfer portal and
yeah,
how that's kind of fucked a lot of these kids, as well as
mhm,
what it means for these college coaches having an off season or a break between their bowl and
mhm,
their end of the season and their bowl practices because there's really no break now. So a lot of the stuff we'll touch. Obviously, we're going to touch transfer portal again. Some of these guys we've talked about today will actually have a home soon, and probably by next week. So hopefully, we'll be able to
yeah.
talk about
Uh,
that and see where Walter Nolan goes.
2 other
And
names,
then
that we failed to bring up today was, Cam Ward and DJU, so we gotta look out for those. I really think it's
Cam
well,
Ward leaning
DJU
towards Miami, I think,
leaning
right?
towards Miami, and then DJU they still have him looking at Louisville. That could be a great spot for Louisville to go, but I
With all
don't know,
the
I feel like
talent they just got, though, like that'd
yeah,
be pretty
I can
huge.
see that, but I feel like
Um,
they're just playing games like, okay, who's going to Florida State, who's going to Miami? I feel like
I
they
think
just need
that's.
to
I
text
think
each other.
I think
Who's
whoever.
good?
Yeah, I think he's either. Well, obviously you see Cam Ward's like, okay, well, I'm going to Miami or Florida State, and DJ's like, okay, well, I'm going to either FSU or I'm going to go to Louisville, and he's like, all right, big dog, pick it.
Yeah.
Pick right now.
Yeah,
It's
exactly. You got it, bro.
so so that's the tough part between that, but we'll dive into it more next week. Thanks for tuning into the show, guys. Obviously, we're gonna hit the New Year's Bowls next week as well. So huge stream next week. Hope you boys can drop in live. We have a live chat on the side we kind of react to during it if you guys want to do that. But thanks, and we'll see Rich next week as well. Peace out, boys.
Later.